Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So, as Dr. Marathi sir has already told us about the Consumer Protection Act of 2019 and various challenges we doctors face due to that. And the basic problem is if we don't want to go there in a consumer court, that is informed consent and counseling. So, the brief outline about my course, about my talk, informed consent, the law as it stands today, essential guidelines, understanding the problem, why patients decide to sue or file complaints, relevance of a consent form, how we can convey caring attitudes with information, what is the process of getting the informed consent, how we can integrate the process and the consent form, and what are various model consent forms. As a starting point, it is necessary for us to understand some of the basic legal fundamentals of the consent law. Informed consent, as it is defined, is a process for getting permission towards a medical treatment by a patient, granted in full knowledge of the possible consequences, risks, and benefits. Now, there are two viewpoints. One is the Indian viewpoint or our viewpoint, and one is the Western world or the American viewpoint. The patient viewpoint or the Western world viewpoint means that the type of information that should be disclosed to a patient should be based on what a reasonable person in patient's position would want to know in similar circumstances. Whereas in India, there is a reasonable physician standard which defines disclosure based on what a reasonable practitioner in the medical community would customarily disclose under the same or like circumstances. The law clearly states that it is a non-deligible duty. You cannot allot it to anyone. आप नहीं बोल सकते. You cannot say कि I had asked my counselor to do it or my assistant to do it or my technician to do it. It is your ultimately your duty. It is a non-deligible duty, and you have to disclose and discuss with the patient your diagnosis, the nature and purpose of the treatment, the risk and benefit, alternative methods, along with its risks and benefits, and the risks and benefits of no treatment. All this you have to cover in your consents. Almost there is some good news. So many cases are being filed right and left, but 95% of them are being settled in favor of the doctors or ophthalmologists. Then the question remains, why were such cases filed in the first place when there were no sufficient legal grounds for complaint to succeed? The basic and simple answer for that is because the patients were surprised by the clinical outcome, or they were angry with the provider or the ophthalmologist, who they strongly believe to have caused it. General assumptions that it is motivated by personal greed or by predatory lawyers are not proved, and they are usually not the fact. Patients decide to sue because they strongly believe that ophthalmologists did not warn them about the potential medical problems following treatment or procedure, or that the doctors tried to mislead them. These are the basic two things where the patient feel aggrieved. Usually the decision to sue or not comes down to whether the patient believed the physician cared about them personally or not. So you have to give some caring attitude to the patient. A survey of patients who experienced adverse clinical outcome proved that patients who chose to file a case in court regarded their ophthalmologist or physician to be uncaring as compared to the patient who elected not to file a case. So in such a scenario, what is the relevance of a consent form? Consent form is a best constructed legal consent form. Even a best constructed legal form becomes virtually powerless to forestall litigation. Anybody can go to court anywhere according to the new law. But a consent form coupled with the patient's perception that important clinical information was personally conveyed by a caring physician could help to prevent many catastrophes. A physician who expressly acknowledges certain clinical uncertainty and empathizes with the patient forms a bond which the patient will pursue as caring and personal attitude. Consent activities take place as a process that begins when the first patient encounters the doctors or the team of or your team. Forms and signatures are merely an end-stage outcome or culmination of the process. Informed consent is still regarded in many ophthalmic practices as discrete legal event. It is important to change the mindset of the entire patient care team. Hospital support staff such as nurses, paramedical personnel, and administrative must first be encouraged to shift their focus from paperwork to the process of getting that consent. Documentation is important but should not be the sole purpose. When possible, start it as early as possible in the continuum of the care. Try to make arrangements to have family members present when discussing about various pros and cons of the therapy. During the initial or subsequent visit, introduce the consent form, clarify it is for intended to help both the patient as well as ophthalmologist. Important facts which matter to the patient have been discussed and understood, and be frank and honest about the clinical uncertainties. Give the patient a copy of the form or documentation. Don't hide it from them. Don't deny them that copy. It doesn't make any difference whether you give them the copy or not. If a patient appears troubled over the risk or concern, empathize with them, accept their ultimate decision, and if the consent process was poorly handled as described, there should be no animosity. When possible, make contemporaneous note. Nowadays, people go for video recordings also. Make contemporaneous note in the patient's record during all phases of the consent process, even if a form is used. Ironically, very few medical practices case lost by physicians are solely related to legal doctrine of informed consent. Yet, it is this legal components and language of consent forms that dominate risk management seminars and instruction courses. Clearly, more malpractices cases with consent issues are lost for reasons related to defective process and communications rather than the forms or legal requirement. So what is a model consent form? The best way to document such information, and more importantly, to record that consent process took place is still through the pre-established forms. It is essential for all members of practice management team to regard such document not as just another form to complete, but as important informational tool to establish a strong alliance between ophthalmologist and patient. A short form entry should be avoided. Risk, benefit, and alternatives have been explained to the patient should be clearly mentioned. Handwritten entries should be avoided as far as possible. The use of consent form or most operative procedure is still the best way for ophthalmologists to document the whole process. There is no one right or wrong answer in designing a ophthalmic consent form. Like all parts of medical records, consent form must be dynamic and it should represent the ophthalmologist made a reasonable effort to effectively carry out his important duty as a part of patient's ongoing care. A number of ophthalmic specific forms are available at various websites, including our own AIOS.org, and now it is available in Marathi also for the state of Maharashtra, thanks to our dynamic team of members of that consent form. Or if you need some more assistance in that, you can always email or WhatsApp us. We will send you various consent forms. These are the references, and that's all I would like to share at this moment. So I think we have got sufficient. I finished within time.